Good morning, students. In last class, we have discussed polynomial and that chapter was completed. In today's class, we are going to see one more new concept, a new chapter, that is Introduction to Euclid's Geometry. Now see, what is this geometry? In up to 8th standard, you have done so many construction, you have studied about triangles, right? What is actually geometry? Now see, this geometry is derived from the Greek word, okay? Geometry is derived from the word geometry is derived from the Greek word, see, geo. Geo means what? Earth. Okay. Metrin means measurement, or metrin or metri. Okay. Metri means measurement. Now see, when you combine these two, we come to know that geometry is nothing but the earth measurement. Okay, they are going to measure some things, object. It is nothing but the geometry. Now see, in ancient civilization, okay, India or Egypt, China, okay, they all were studied about geometry. Okay, for in ancient civilization, people used to face many problems. Okay, that's why the geometry was developed. I will give an example here. In Egypt, the river Nile, okay, the river Nile was used to flow here. The river Nile was used to flow here. There was a land, okay, there was a land. This land will belong to particular persons. Suppose this land is belong to A, here B, C, D, okay, it will belong to different persons, yes or no? This land used to belong to different person. So when the river Nile overflow, okay, the all water used to come here, and all water used to come into this land. At that time, what it will happen? See, they used to do markings. Okay, the person A used to do markings. This land belonged to A. This land belonged to person B. This land belonged to D. They used to do markings of the land. So because of flood, this land full marking used to vanish. At that time, the people got very problem. So which land belongs to me or what? At that time, again they used to do marking. Okay, when they used to do again marking, this land belonged to me, and this land belonged to C, this land belonged to D, this land belonged to C, E, F, G. They used to do again marking. So again, when the flood used to come, again all the markings were used to vanish. Okay, that time the people got very problem. Okay, which land belonged to us? They used to get confused. That's why what they thought of constructing a boundaries. Okay, constructing boundaries. When the flood used to come, no, at that time it should not have to happen anything. That's why they thought of constructing a boundaries. Okay, to construct a boundaries here, this land belongs to person C. For this, they need to what? They need to calculate the area. Yes or no? From that time, it was developed of geometry. Okay, I just gave an example. From ancient time only, like this problem occurred, the people were tried to find out the area of the simple things, and like this only the geometry developed. Okay, again we can see that in Indus Valley civilization, the Harappa and Mohenjo-daro cities, we can see there the roads will be parallel. Okay, the roads were parallel, the city was highly constructed. From that we can tell that you have studied about the Indus Valley civilization, Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, right? The cities were highly constructed, the roads were very parallel, the rooms were very neatly arranged. What we can tell that? From there we can tell that geometry was developed from the ancient civilization only. But see students, and ancient time definitely geometry were used. All people in the world, they start to use geometry, okay? But see all people used to apply geometry in their own way. There was no any systematic way, okay? Simply they were using geometry, but there were no particular proofs at all. In ancient time people used to use themselves in their own way the geometry. Afterwards what happened means, in Greek, okay, one of the Greek mathematician, Thales, okay, he gave the proof. Thales was the Greek mathematician. He gave the proof, one proof that, see a circle, okay, a circle is bisected by its diameter. He gave the proof. He told that the circles we can make in two equal parts. So how it is possible means, if a circle is bisected by its diameter only, from diameter only we can bisect two circles. Bisect means making a circle in two equal parts. Now we know that these are nothing but semicircles. Yes or no? Semicircle. Okay. See, this credit will go to Thales only. He was the Greek mathematician. Okay. He gave the proof for this. Circle is bisected by its diameter only. And one of the mathematician, okay, one of the pupil of Thales, he is a Pythagoras. Pythagoras and his groups, okay, they also gave so many geometric properties at all, okay, they gave so many geometric properties, and you know that Pythagoras theorem also. Yes or no? See, Pythagoras, he was the pupil of Thales, okay, Pythagoras was the pupil of Thales. Pythagoras had given Pythagoras theorem. Yes or no? We know Pythagoras by Pythagoras theorem. What he told that the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the square of the remaining two sides. That is base square plus opposite square. Or I will draw a figure for this. Suppose this is a right angle triangle ABC, and here angle B is 90 degree. So what he gave Pythagoras theorem, that is AC square is equal to AB square plus BC square. Okay. So Pythagoras also gave so many geometric properties also he had told, and his very famous theorem was Pythagoras theorem. We are using this, right? AC square is equal to AB square plus BC square. Now see, like this geometry developed in the same period, okay, Euclid was a mathematics teacher in Egypt, okay. He has arranged geometry in a very systematic way, okay. I written introduction to Euclid's geometry. Say Euclid was a mathematics teacher in Egypt. He studied geometry, and he has written, he has all arranged in a very systematic manner, and his all information he has written in a book called Element. Okay. So this Element he has divided into 13 chapters, okay. 13 chapters. Okay, here or 13 parts we can tell. 13 parts, and here each part is one book. Okay, say Euclid was a mathematician, Egypt mathematician. He studied geometry and he had arranged in a very systematic manner, and he had written all his information in a treatise called Element. In that element he had divided into 13 parts, and each part is one book, we can tell that. Now see here, we are going to see in this chapter Introduction to Euclid's Geometry. We are going to see in this chapter Euclid's, the definitions, axioms and postulates we are going to read in this chapter. Now see, we will see Euclid's definitions. What Euclid has given the definitions. Okay. A point is that, see, in ancient time people used to use the geometry in their own way, I told, but Euclid was one mathematician, Egypt mathematician. I told you that he studied and he arranged the geometry in a very systematic manner. Okay. And I told that at that time people not used to know what is a point, but now we know what is a point, right, and what is a line. At that time the people don't know what is a point, simply they were using. Okay, but Euclid gave some definitions. We will see that a point is that which has no part. Say, what is point? If I ask you now you are able to tell because you know already, yes. But in ancient time, what is a point? That time the people don't know. Now see here, how he defined this. A point is that, say if I ask you this point, what is this point? A point is that which has no part. This point does not have a length, breadth or thickness. This point does not have anything. Okay, what is point? A point is that which has no part. See here, what is this point? This point is, it does not have a length and it does not have a breadth, right? That's why a point is that which has no part. This is the first definition. Second definition here, a line is breadthless length. Suppose here, if I draw a line here. So what is this line? A line has only length. Yes or no? A line will going to have only length, but this line does not have a breadth. What is the second definition? A line is breadthless length. A line does not have a breadth. It will going to have a length. Now third, see, the ends of a line are points. Now see here, students, take this example. This is a line. Yes. The ends of this line are what? The ends of this line are points. The third definition tells us that the ends of a line will going to be points. Next, a straight line is a line which lies evenly with the point on itself. So if I draw a straight line, what is this straight line? A straight line is a line which lies evenly with the points itself. Yes or no? See, a straight line is a line which lies evenly with the point itself. Next here, what is surface? A surface is that which has length and breadth only. See here? So this is the surface. So this surface has a length and breadth. Yes? So take this example. What is the surface? The surface will going to have only length and breadth. Now see this blackboard also. Yes, this blackboard is a surface. It has length and it has breadth. Okay, this is the fifth definition. Sixth here, the edges of a surface are lines. Now they are telling that, means Euclid gave the definition, the edges, whatever the edges of a surface, the edges of a surface are nothing but lines. Okay, the edges of a surface are nothing but lines. So this is the sixth definition he had given. See the seventh definition, a plane surface is a surface. So he defined, a plane surface is a surface which lies evenly with the straight line on itself. Now see, what is this? A plane surface. See, in this plane surface, how you define here? A plane surface is a surface which lies evenly with the straight line on itself. Okay, so these are the definitions given by Euclid. Now see, a question arises, a point is that which has no part. Here part is, what is part? Okay, what is part? Here it is not explained. What is part actually? Okay, this to be defined, right? Actually, what is part we don't know. Now see, a line is breadthless length. So what is breadthless length? This is also not defined. Okay, the ends of a line are points. A straight line is a line which lies evenly with the points on itself. See here part, breadthless length. Here some terms are not defined. See to define one term, no, to define part. If you want to define part, again one sentence will come. Again in that he had to explain. So like this only a chain of definitions will occur. Okay, for that what he had done means he had done some assumption. Now see here, what is part we don't know, right? Now a line is breadthless length. What is a breadthless? This is also we don't know and it is not defined. Okay, the ends of a line are points. Line. Okay, here say a breadthless length we only don't know what is it. So to define one term, okay, like that. Now if you want to define part, if you give one statement, again there some terms will come. Like this only what a chain of definitions will going to occur. For that he had done some assumption. Euclid done some assumption. Assumption means we have to accept, okay, without any proof we have to accept that things, like that he had done some assumption. We will see now that. Now we will see Euclid's assumptions. Now see he gave some definitions, right? Just we saw. In that definitions he got some of the limitations, right? To define one term, to define one definition, suppose part, okay, a point is a, what he told? A point is that which has no part. A point is one which has no part. So what is that part? Is that part is area? Okay, what is that part? Is part is area. Again what is that area? You have to define. Like this a chain of definitions to define. If we defined one term means again he have to, in that again one word can, again he have to define. Like that only to define one thing, again he had to define one word or anything. A chain of definitions, okay, he got. That's why he done some assumptions. Okay, see in these assumptions he divided into parts, that is one axioms and one is postulates. See what are these axioms and postulates means? These are the universal truths. Universal truth means we don't need any proof only for that. By seeing only we have to accept that. Okay, by seeing that, yes, it is right, we have to accept such things. So that such things are nothing but the axioms and postulates. Okay, now see here one vessel is there and here one vessel is there. Okay, now if I add here 3 balls and here also 3 balls, these are equal. Yes, now see these are equal, you are accepting that. Yes or no? Now if I add 2 more balls here also if I add 2 more balls, now total balls is 1 2 3 4 5, 5 is equal to 5. Yes, now see you don't want any proof here. Yes or no? This is a truth. By seeing only we can say yes, this is correct. We don't want any proof also. We won't ask any questions also for this. So these are nothing but the axioms and postulates. Okay. Now why he had divided in two? So what is axiom and what is postulate? What is the special in this? Axioms and postulates are universal truths. We are going to accept it. But why he divided in two? Means these axioms we are using in all topics of mathematics and this postulates we are using only in geometry. Okay, this axiom we are using in all topics of what? Mathematics, and this postulate we are using only in the topic of geometry. Okay, now Euclid gives some of the axioms. Okay, we will see one by one what are the Euclid's axioms. These are very, very important axioms, Euclid's axioms. First one, things which are equal to the same thing are equal to one another. Now see, things which are equal to the same thing means here suppose here A is equal to C, B is equal to C. See, this is also equal to C, this is also equal to C. Things which are, these things are equal to the same thing. Here A is equal to C, B is equal to C. What we can tell? Are equal to one another, means this implies A is equal to B. Understood? Things which are equal to the same thing are equal to one another. This is the first axiom. Now we will see second one. If equals are added to equal, if equals are added to equals, the wholes are equal. The wholes are equal. So what is this? If equals are added to equals, the wholes are equal. Now see if A is equal to B, if A and B are equal here, okay, if equals are added, these two are equal. If equals are added to equals, these two are equal. If I add here 5 and here also 5, what we can tell? This answer will also be equal. Yes or no? This is the truth. We don't want any proof here. Yes? If equal, A and B are equal here, I am adding 5. If equal, 5 I am adding. If equals are added to equals, this resultant will also be equal. Say I can give here one more example. See 10 is equal to 10. These are equal. In this equal I am adding 5. Now this answer will also be equal, no? 10 plus 5 is 15. 10 plus 5 is 15. This is equal. Yes, you can take any example. Example, one more here, 20 is equal to 20. These are equal. If I add here 10, 10, what it will happen? 20 plus 10 is 30, 20 plus 10 is 30. If these are equals, from equals we are adding equal here, 10, 10, means the answer will also be equal. From that, what we can tell, if equals are added to equals, the wholes are equal. So this is about the second axiom. Now we will see the third axiom. Third one, if equals are subtracted, if equals are subtracted from equals, the wholes are, or we can tell the remainders are equal. The remainders are equal. Now see here, if equals are subtracted from equals, suppose I will take here 50 is equal to 50. These are equal. These are equals. Yes or no? 50 is equal to 50. If equals are subtracted from equals, suppose I will subtract here 10. Here also 10. So 50 minus 10 is equal to 50 minus 10. What is that? 40 is equal to 40. So what I can tell from this? See here, if you subtract equals from equal, the remainder will also going to be equal. Okay, now see here, if A is equal to C, if I subtract by 5, okay, the remainders or the resultant will also going to be equal. So this is about the third axiom. Okay, now we will go for the fourth axiom. Fourth one, things which coincide with one another are equal to one another. Now see here, students, these are the things. These are the two things. Okay, things which coincide. Coincide means superposition, like this. Things which coincide, okay, with one another, if they coincide, are equal to one another, they will going to be equal. Okay, see here, this is one chalk piece and this is one chalk piece. These are the two things. If these things coincide, okay, things which coincide with one another are equal to one another. Okay, this is about the fourth axiom. Now we will see the fifth axiom. Fifth one, the whole is greater than the part. So this is obvious. Okay, a small child will tell this, yes or no? Definitely a whole is greater than the part. Now see here, So this is a chocolate. Okay, if you take just one piece, now tell me which is bigger, this is bigger or this is bigger? Okay, this is bigger, no? This is a whole. Whole is always, what? Whole is always greater than the part. So no, always a whole will be greater than the part. Now see, a student, you are understanding, it is a common sense, right? You are thinking what ma'am is telling. This is a common sense. This is only we are going to call it as what? Axioms. These are the universal truth. Now we will see the sixth axiom. Things which are double of the same thing, same things are equal to one another. Now see, if I take here B is equal to 2A and C is equal to 2A. Now see, things which are double of the same thing. So this B is also equal to 2A, this C is also equal to 2A. Things which are, these are the things which are equal to the double of the same thing are equal to one another. Then we can tell that B is equal to C. Okay, that's why the sixth axiom, things which are double of the same thing are equal to one another. So this is about the sixth axiom. Now see the seventh axiom, things which are halves of the same things are equal to one other. Now see, if I take here, if A is equal to half of B and C is equal to half of B. Now see, things which are halves of the same thing. See, these are the things which are equal to the halves of the same thing are equal to one another. Then what we can tell? Then A is equal to C. So these are the axioms. Total 7 axioms we have learnt. So next we will see the postulates of Euclid's. Now see, Euclid's first postulate, a straight line may be drawn from any one point to any other point. So what this telling means, the Euclid's first postulate is telling that a straight line may be drawn from one point to any other point. Okay, a straight line can be drawn from one point to any other point. But here they are not telling how many lines we can draw here. Here it is not defined anything here. Just the postulate is telling that a straight line may be drawn from one point to any other point. Now for this here axiom they have given for this, given two distinct points. Okay, given two distinct points, there is a unique line that passes through them. See here, given 2 points, only one line passes. A unique line passes through 2 points. Okay, so this is about the postulate 1. Now see here, from 2 points we can draw one line. Okay, Suppose from one point, how many lines we can draw? We can draw infinite number of lines. Yes or no, students? Here, infinite number of lines we can draw from one point. But from 2 points, we can draw a unique line. Okay. Now see here, postulate 2. A terminated line can be produced indefinitely. See here, terminated line means for terminated line, Euclid for line segment is telling terminated line. Whatever we are telling line segment, no, line segment means what? Which has a 2 end points. Yes or no? Which has a 2 end point. This is nothing but a line segment. Suppose this is of a 4 centimeter. Okay, this is a line segment. For this line segment, Euclid is telling what? Terminated line according to him. A terminated line can be produced indefinitely. See here, this is a terminated line. For line segment only, he is telling terminated line. So this terminated line can be produced. Okay, this terminated line can be produced indefinitely to form the line. Suppose if you are given a line segment, from that line segment if you want to make a line, what we can do? We can extend from both these sides. Okay, this is about postulate number 2. So postulate 3, you see, a circle can be drawn with any center and any radius. Yes or no? From any center and any radius we can draw a circle. This we don't want any proof here. Yes, we have done so many circles construction. A circle can be drawn with any center and any radius. Postulate number 4 here. All right angles are equal to one another. See here, this is a right angle. Okay, all right angles are equal to one another. So this is about the 4th postulate. Now see here postulate 1 to 4 are very easy to understand. We don't want any explanation here. Now we will see one more postulate, that is postulate number 5, which is somewhat difficult to understand. We will see that. Now see the 5th postulate. If a straight line falling on 2 straight lines, okay, makes the interior angles on the same side of it taken together less than 2 right angles, then the 2 straight lines, if produced indefinitely, meet on that side on which the sum of angles is less than 2 right angles. Now see what this is telling. See if I take here 2 straight lines, okay, if you take 2 straight lines and if a line falls on these straight lines, okay, and here this is angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, angle 4. These are interior angles. Angle 1, 2, 3, 4 are interior angles. What this telling is, if a straight line intersects 2 lines, then if one pair of this angle is less than 180 degrees, suppose angle 1 plus angle 2 is less than 180 degree, see if you produce this line, so I will draw once again this. So this is one line. Now see here, if a straight line intersects 2 straight lines, if a straight line intersects 2 lines, then these are the what? These are the interior angles. Angle 1, 2, 3, 4 are interior angles. If one pair of interior angle, okay, that is angle 1 plus angle 2 is less than 180 degree. If this was the case, what will happen here? If we produce this line, okay, if you produce this line and if you produce here this line also, so these lines are going to intersect at one point. So this is only the fifth postulate is telling. Or if you take two lines and if one line falls, okay, if one line falls on these two lines, say if one pair of interior angle is less than 180 degree, means what I am telling, it may be angle 1 plus angle 2 is less than 180 degree, or angle 3 plus angle 4 is less than 180 degree. Say any one pair from this is less than 180 degree, means what will happen means, if you extend these two lines, this line will going to intersect at one particular point. So this is about the fifth postulate. So equivalent version of fifth postulate we are going to see on the next class. Okay. Now see here, these are the axioms and postulates whatever we have studied. Okay, so these axioms and postulates Euclid used to prove the theorems. Okay, total 465 theorems he had proved from using these axioms and postulates. Okay, these theorems are also called propositions. Okay, in next class based on this axioms and postulates we are going to solve worked examples. Thank you. We will see in the next class.